Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, we are in the shop today and we will not be working on the Corvette back behind me or the SS. Today what we'll be working on is something that you have seen in the background in almost all of my videos, and that is going to be my tractor. This is a Allis Chalmers tractor from, I don't know, the early 1980s. It's a 916 Hydro. I think it's a 6-speed, and it has served us well over here at the property for the last 8 or 9 years. Yeah, actually 9, almost 10 years now. And yeah, so this thing has a 40-inch deck on it, and when I mean property is, guys, we're sitting on just about an acre of land, not including the house, so we've got a lot of property to mow. Yes, the concrete driveway takes up a bunch, but with a 48-inch deck, this thing mows the property in roughly about an hour, hour and a half, give or take, depending on how fast we're going or how long I've let the grass grow. So, you know, it takes a little bit over an hour. And if we push mow it with your standard, is it 21 or 24-inch deck? I think it's 21. It takes just about 6 hours to mow this property. So I've used this thing religiously over the years, but unfortunately we either had a differential break or the rear axle. I'm just not quite sure. And we will tear into this tractor today to try to find out what's going on. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say, this tractor is just about the same age I am. So I am 41. I think this is like 40 years old, something like that. So it has served the previous owner quite well. It's worked real well here. Just the problem we ran into is we were greasing the rear axle, and this was just a week ago. We greased it, and then we noticed that the grease was not coming out the other side of the axle. The grease is actually supposed to come out this fitting, but we filled it over here, and we noticed that the grease was not making its way through the axle. So that tells me something is screwed up with the differential or the rear axle, like I was telling you about. And then finally, I mowed after we serviced it, and that is when the rear axle stopped spinning entirely. If I turn the mower on and engage the PTO, the axle will spin. You can see it spin inside the hub, but the wheels don't move. So like I said, something is screwed up either in that differential or, you know, basically something is not engaging the hubs to move the wheels. So it's weird because you can see the PTO move on the inside, but like I said, the outside axle is not. So something is screwed up in that connection there. So this is the first time I will be working on this alone, so this should be an interesting territory, and I hope this video does okay. There are some guys that are real big fans of these tractors, and there's some content on YouTube, but not a ton. And since, hey, we're in the shop, it's something kind of automotive related, let's go ahead and get started. You guys can see we did just service this. I did just put a new marine grade industrial belt on here for the mowing deck. Everything was working like I was saying. But if you guys can look down here, if you look more on the differential side, kind of where my finger is, you know, you guys can see some jacked up iron. That's the best way I could put it, is that should be a solid tube, and it definitely looks like a big chunk of metal is missing. So I'm gonna get this wheel off. I need to get this wheel off as well, but I think we're just gonna focus on this side today. Alright guys, so you can see we have the wheel off. We kind of got the outer hub off, at least part of it. And the outer hub is this part I'm talking about right here. That was just a press fit on here on the axle itself. I was able to take that outer hub off by just taking the, you know, the lug nuts that you just saw it takes off. These were 5/8 inch. Way to take this outer collar off. This is just use a crescent wrench, you know, open that up, pull that off. And what we've been working on now is trying to get this 2-piece hub off. If you guys can see, there are actually some gears inside of here. So I don't think this is part of the differential. I thought the differential would be inside of the case, but maybe it's not. Maybe there's like a you know, kind of an open differential on the outside, and there's one on the other side. I've never seen it work like that, but hey, never say never. So, yeah, this is a 7/16 nut and bolt. Just take those off on both sides. And what I'm trying to do now is actually getting this outer flange off, but I'm not seeing any way to do it. I need to go double check the diagram. I don't see a retaining clip, but there might be one here. I kind of need to see how this attaches to this part without just the hardware. You know, something is forcing this on. So we might have to go get a hammer, might go get a pry bar, and get this outer cover off. All right, guys, we got more parts off of the axle. If you look to my left, you will see basically the open differential on the passenger side or the right side of the tractor. And this is simply held together with nut and bolt. It's 9/16 on both ends. And basically, if you guys can look inside of here, the spider gears that basically turn with the axle, they are actually in between these two hubs. So they're kind of sandwiched in between like that, and there's also springs in there. And the way this works is the bolts actually go through the spider gear as well as the spring. I think each other one might be a spring, something like that. And that all is actually bolted through this flange right here. Now to get this flange off, we actually have to take off this spring clip. So we're going to take that off. And that should allow us to get right access to the damage that's back here and kind of find out what's going on. So, all right, guys, I got that clip retaining ring off. You guys can see, so we got that little hub piece off. Then you guys can focus right here on all this damage. There is a ton of broken metal here. This should be one tube. There is a grease fitting down here, or Zerk fitting. So it appears that this fitting and collar broke. And then it also looks like, if you guys look at here, there's a bunch of damage on, I'm not sure if this is a bearing or whatever's on the inside of this metal flange. I'm not sure if that has to be pushed out or replaced. But yeah, you guys can see it looks like there's chunks of metal missing there as well. Just a real quick update, I actually jacked up the other side of the tractor real quick, and you guys can see the axle is sliding out. So actually, I don't really have to take apart the other side because there's the locking key is apparently on this side, and I already took that out. So all I'd have to do is lift it up a little bit more, pull the whole axle out with the wheel. So, all right, guys, as you can see, we are in the Silverado. So a little bit of a side quest has occurred with this project. So as you guys can see in this picture here, what I had pointed out previously, what had exploded was actually the axle housing tube. It's called the external housing tube. It basically carries the axle inside of it. And as you guys can see from this diagram, I have the part number. It looks like it's available, but if you call anywhere, it's not available. It's been discontinued. So I ended up looking online and found a whole transmission on eBay for $150. Now, I made an offer to the guy for $130, and the guy took it. So I paid, I think it was like $140 with tax and whatnot. So I have a whole transmission instead of just one tube, and that tube cost like $180 at the lowest. That's if it was even available, but since it's not, you know, we've got to deal with used parts on this deal, and the guy, you know, had it. And then I happened to see that he was in North Carolina, so I typed in the city he was in. He was 30 minutes from the house. So as you guys can see, we are only 25 minutes from the guy's house. I already paid him. I just have to go pick it up. So, you know, it's Monday after work, and instead of having to wait, you know, who knows how long for a part to come in or a transmission to ship, I can go pick it up and I'll be home in like, you know, an hour. So that's not a bad ordeal, and we saved a little bit of money getting the whole assembly. All right, guys, we are back home, and it is a different day. You guys will see we have the new transmission back behind the mower, and you can see I do have the driver's side or left side axle removed. Basically, all I did was just lift up the rear end and pull that out. And so, yeah, basically removing that wheel has allowed us to get access to the transmission and basically just start taking bolts off. You guys can see I've taken off this fan shroud. That's like a 1/4 inch fitting. Pop that off. And basically all I've done is just go around the transmission, identify bolts, and just start pulling them off. You guys can see this bracket, these sleeves, just take them off the old one, put them on the new one, and that's kind of how we're going to attack this. So once we get all of the bolts off, we're going to take off all the controls. So I'm not really going to adjust anything. I'm just going to disconnect them. And hopefully that allows us to get everything else out of the way so that we can drop the transmission down. And when we drop the transmission down, we're going to want to pull it out the passenger side, because you guys can see this goes around the axle itself. So we're going to pull it out that way. We are going to have to pull off the hydrostatic unit, unfortunately. And that's just held on with like 4 or 5 bolts. There's 3 there, 2 more there. Yeah, and that's it. So just those 3 or 4 bolts, pull those off. The hydrostatic unit should come off, and I think that's about it. So I'm going to go ahead, keep making progress on getting all the controls, getting the hydrostatic unit off, and go from there. So alright guys, as you just saw in the time lapse, we did get the old transmission out. You can see that's over there, and we did bolt the new transmission in. And all I've done so far is basically just put the bolts from the side and bottom, so the driver's side as well as the passenger side. I've put all those bolts in, but obviously there's a bunch of stuff still missing. I got to get the hydrostatic unit off of the old transmission. I got to get that transferred over here. And then all of the controls that we talked about earlier, we got them all taken apart, and we shouldn't have any adjustment because I literally just unbolted it where I could. And once we get that hydrostatic unit in here, we can hook up all of the controls. And I think we almost would be ready to fire this thing up. Obviously, I need to go get fluid, go get a new filter for the hydrostatic unit. And yeah, so that's pretty much where we are. And I was able to get this out in a couple hours and get the new one bolted in. Obviously, I'm not done, but I am done for the night. So we will pick this up tomorrow and finish this up. All right, guys, so we have gotten the PTO transferred over from the other transmission onto the new one. And that ended up being fairly simple. I ended up getting a 3-prong puller from AutoZone, and I used that to grab the 3 screw bolt holes right here. I used that to pull that off of the shaft of the PTO, pulled that off. I was able to get that PTO off, and finally over here. Then there are 3 mounting bolts for the PTO. They're here, here, in the very front. I'm going to point to it, it's down there. They all have a shaft or a bracket that goes, that the bolts go through. Tighten that down, and that's pretty much it for the PTO assembly. Now it's just hooking up all the linkage and everything. I've gotten everything correct except for this part right here. This should actually be flipped over, and this metal bracket should be on the inside of this bracket, not the outside. So I need to take that back apart, put that back on there, but yeah. And then the last thing is I did go buy a new PTO drive belt. Went to Tractor Supply for that, and that's just a 1/2 inch by 46 inch. And as you guys can see, I routed it through the pulleys and everything and put it back on. Oh, and this shield right here in the front, that actually comes off. There's a bolt down there. I'm gonna point to it with the camera. Take that off, the shield comes off, and you're able to pull off the old belt. So, all right guys, you can see we got the rear axle in. I just slid the whole axle assembly from the driver's side through the transaxle into the passenger side. I put the 2 longer locking keys into the outer hub here. This is the section that's snapped on the old transmission. Then I slid this mounting flange over that. And then there's the other pair of keyways that you guys can see right there. What holds that in is this gear over here that I'm pointing to. There are 2 washers that go, it goes washer, washer, gear, and then it's the snap ring, and the snap ring goes right here. And that should get you up to the differential, which is right here, and we will put that on. That slides through everything and ties into here. Then we'll put the hub on, and then the rest of these bolts. So, all right guys, after another long afternoon and into the evening and into late at night, we have a fully assembled mower again. I got everything finished up on the passenger side. You guys can see we got the hub, we got the differential, we got the wheel put back on. All the keys are in place. The locking collar, so basically this end piece down there, that's all been tightened down. Everything is good to go. Do need to grease the axle. I do need to put fluid into the PTO. I do have fluid in the filter over there. Actually, the fluid's back there. So that's probably another hour or two of there. And I will point out one thing I did forget, and that is the protective fan shroud, because there is this little metal blade circulating right there. In the end, the main point of this video was really just to document how you tear this mower apart, how you put a new transmission in it, and how you put it back together. All the other stuff, like I said, if we run into problems, we'll let you guys know and we'll do a follow-up. If we don't have any problems, then there won't be a follow-up. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. If you guys liked it, hit that like button. If you guys want to see a potential follow-up video, hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications. If you guys want to help support the channel, check out all the links down below. I'll try to include links to the belts, the filter, the fluid, everything that we went in to kind of, you know, clean up this rear end and make sure that the new one works for us and all that. Include all the part numbers down below, and also check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. Any support you guys can give there goes right back into the channel. You know, the truck, the Corvette, the SS, and now the mower. So thanks guys, that's gonna be it.